65 yards. This time he fumbles the ball.
You must be out your goddamn mind. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Victory Monday. Welcome to another edition of Ryno's Rants. The Vikings don't make it easy, do they? Taking a game that, with about 2 minutes left to go in the game, looked fairly comfortable sitting there with an 11-point lead. After the Vikings go down and score on that late in the fourth to push it to 11 points, then turn around and give up a long kick return to put the Bears in business. Then they go down, score the touchdown. Okay, we scored the touchdown. Now we just got to worry about the 2-point conversion. Score the 2-point conversion. Okay. We're good. They're going to do an onside kick here. An onside kick has not been recovered yet this year. Onside kick happens. Ball bounces off Johnny Munt's foot and the Bears recover. That's okay. They got to drive down in almost no time to go get a field goal. They march down in almost no time and get a field goal, sending it to overtime, where the Vikings defense finally woke back up, and then the Vikings go down, score a field goal, and end up winning the game. Good evening, everybody in the chat. Dave Rinaldi, Josh, Doc, everybody. Brian Flores cannot be considered elite until he fixes the 2-minute defense. The defense in general yesterday gave up a ton of yards. Caleb Williams threw for 340 yards. That's only, I believe the second time this year that he's gone over 300. Good evening, Sonny. But let's be honest on that 2-minute stuff too. I put a lot of this on lay it at the feet of special teams coordinator Matt Daniels. You cannot give up that kick return that they did at the end of the game there. I mean, the Bears had the ball out around midfield. I think it was even beyond midfield. I believe they were in Vikings territory to start that drive. I mean, that puts the defense behind the 8 ball right away there. And then I don't know what the deal with Munt. I've heard things, he's supposed to be blocking everything else. You're on the front line and there is an onside kick coming. You're not even supposed to be surprised about it because the team has to declare that they are kicking an onside kick, even though everybody knew it was coming, should have known it was coming anyway. And he's blocking like it's a normal kickoff, and the ball bounces off his leg and the Bears recover it. You're on the front line. The ball, if it hadn't hit Munt, I don't think it would have went 10 yards and it would have been a penalty. The Vikings would have had it, game over. But you got to be more aware of your surroundings in that point. And, Johnny Munt has done a lot of good things for this team in the couple of years he's been here. But that was an absolutely boneheaded play yesterday, to Josh's point here. You got to know where you're at, and you got to know where that ball is. And if it's coming towards you, make sure you stay the hell out of the way. I mean, should have never got to the point that it was anyway. I mean, we had an 11-point lead with 2 minutes to go. That should seal the deal, you would think. But no, we had to make things more difficult on ourselves than need be. Plenty to unpack about this game. A lot of good stuff. And of course, some not so good stuff. Some of the things we've already talked about. The defense. Caleb Williams was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. We did get home with 3 sacks yesterday. The one that Van Ginkel got, they kind of ran him out of bounds, and which counted. And then Jonathan Grenard with 2 of them. The biggest one in that overtime where Caleb Williams reverted back to the Caleb Williams that we've seen earlier, and started running around in circles in the background and tried to do the jump and tuck. And to Grenard's credit, he didn't buy into it. And when Williams came down, he buried him. Dave didn't even go 10 yards. Yeah, that was the thing, David. If it hadn't, once it hit Munt, it didn't matter. Then it became a live ball. But if it hadn't touched a Vikings player, yeah, it would not have gone 10 yards. Would have been a penalty. The Vikings would have gotten the ball at that spot, and the game would have been over. They'd have taken a knee, and it would have been done. So that's, it's those little things that, Lance and I have talked about this. Seems like every show. I've talked about it on this show pretty much every week. Those little fundamental things, shooting yourselves in the foot is what's going to cost you when it gets down into the crunch time, when you get to the playoffs, when you get in these critical games that, the rest of the NFC North keeps winning. If we have any designs at all on trying to win the North, we have to keep pace with Detroit, who right now, is a juggernaut that is looking unbeatable. I'm very interested to see what happens come Thursday, but that's a discussion for a later point in time. But, on the defensive side of things, again, gave up a ton of yards, way more yards than we should have. But it's showing, what the weakness of this Flores defense has been both years that he's been here. If the pass rush does not get home, the back end gets exposed. And Gilmore got exposed yesterday. Griffin got exposed a little bit. And, Shaq Griffin has had a good season for the most part. You don't hear his name a lot. But, which usually means if you don't hear a cornerback's name being called, they're not throwing at him. Now, yesterday, had the biggest one that got thrown at him was that one that Keenan Allen toe tapped on the sidelines. And kudos to Kevin O'Connell and his guys there for calling that challenge. That basically set the whole stage at the beginning of the game. That went from being a first down and goal to being a fourth down. And then on the very next play, Jerry Tillery gets his hand up, knocks down the field goal attempt. Brian Osimo recovers, and the Vikings are in business. But, hey, Andy, good evening. Yeah, you did call a good game from Addison. And that's one thing that a lot of teams are going to have to start figuring out. All the emphasis and the attention goes to Justin Jefferson, so they're double teaming him and putting two high safeties or whatever they're doing to try to take Jefferson out of the game. But by dedicating those resources to take Jefferson out of the game, you see what happened yesterday. Jordan Addison, 8 catches, 162 yards, and a touchdown. TJ Hockenson, 7 catches for 114 yards. Aaron Jones, 22 rushes for 106 yards and a touchdown. We talked about last week about what happened to the running game. Well, they responded this week. Aaron Jones had a very good game, sans that first drive where he fumbled the ball down inside the 5-yard line. The Vikings short yardage, up along the goal line running and that kind of stuff, that still remains a problem. They have not been able to do that, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that we don't have those big guys in the middle of the offensive line that can make that push. You've got Bradbury, who's not a huge man by any stretch of the imagination. He's a little undersized for a center. You've got Reisner on the other side, who is not a great run blocker to begin with. Brandle's a big dude and he's decent at run blocking, but I think that becomes a lot of the issue with why that goal line run game doesn't work out that well. It had been 27 games since the Vikings running back had scored a touchdown on the ground in the second half of a game before that one Aaron Jones scored on yesterday. 27 games. That's unreal. That's almost, I mean, that's it's almost 2 seasons. But, all in all, it was an old school NFC North black and blue division fight. I mean, Lance and I were talking back and forth during the game, and he made that comment, that this looked like an old school NFC North game. And back, even back to the NFC Central days, it was harder than it needed to be, but I got to give the Bears credit. Bears defense is good. Now, that being said, the Vikings offense really didn't have much trouble moving the ball yesterday. There was a couple of times they stalled out and then of course the fumble down inside the red zone that killed them on the first drive. But, by and large, the Vikings offense did its job yesterday. The defense, which, was a bit of a concern. They gave up way too many yards. Now, the run defense, outside of the scrambling from Caleb Williams, I don't remember what he had for rushing yards. Andy, you might know. But I think just from the running backs alone, the Bears only had like 33, 35 yards rushing, I believe. The game was worth the hangover. Yeah, I didn't consume too much during the game because I had stuff I had to work on afterwards. But yeah, it was one of those. Like I said, I made the comment that that last 2 minutes of that game probably took 5 years off of my life just from the stress that it put on us. And I'm not going to lie, I was worried there at the end, but let's give all the credit in the world to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had a good game yesterday. He had those couple of clunkers there in the middle, but he's followed up the last 2 weeks with 2 very solid performances. Hasn't turned the ball over. Yesterday, 22 of 34 for 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's more than respectable. I'll take that out of Sam Darnold every game if we can get those kind of numbers out of him, especially taking care of the ball. And people were talking about Justin Jefferson not making an impact. He had only 1 catch for most of the game. And then he did come up with a couple of key catches there on that overtime drive. Once hit OT, my bartender just slipped me a fresh beer. Somehow didn't make it on my tab. Hey, that happens sometimes. The bartenders, they get busy and they, forget to write stuff down. I bartended before. I know that kind of stuff happens. It's, I went and watched a game at a bar one time. I know I had like 6 beers, and when I paid my tab, it was $7. So I'm not quite sure how that one happened, but it is what it is. Sometimes they get you that way. Sometimes I've had it too where stuff has been put on my tab that probably shouldn't have been on there either. But yeah, we should have expected it, I guess, from this kind of a game. The Vikings never make it easy. We still have that problem of playing down to our opponents, even though realistically this game wasn't as close as the final score. I mean, we know that the Vikings pretty much did. I mean, other than giving up a ton of passing yards, did their job for all but the last 2 minutes of the game, and then everything just kind of fell apart. Did get take advantage of the turnover that they got when on that muff punt. But, there were still plenty of opportunities that were missed. Officiating again yesterday was garbage. Absolutely garbage. Now, I'm not one to blame officials for anything that happens during the game, because you shouldn't put yourself in the position for the officials to make a difference in the game by bad calls one way or the other. But two of them that really stuck in my craw on the thing yesterday, on that drive right after the Vikings fumbled down at the goal line, Caleb Williams in the end zone being chased by Harrison Phillips, and Phillips ends up going over backwards because the guy has a hold of him, pulling him over backwards as he's trying to chase down Caleb Williams. Ref standing right there, no flag. But the most egregious one that really pissed me off was that hit on Brandon Powell on that punt return, 2 steps out of bounds, and the guy launched into him, just absolutely blew him up on the sidelines, and there was nothing. And there were a couple calls too that went, that the Vikings probably got a little lucky on it. The good and the bad have kind of evened themselves out. Zebra's known to be horribly nearsighted. The genus NFLists call us Battis. Definitely are. I don't, it just league wide the NFL has got to do something about the officiating. They do. Roger Goodell just can't keep trotting his happy ass out there and saying the officiating is better than it's ever been, and this, and everything else. And, you get week in, week out, some team gets a letter from the NFL. Oh, we screwed up that call. Our bad. Sorry. Bears are a solid team, coaching staff, terrible coaching staff over there. Yeah, went and got an division road win while not having our best game, big win. Absolutely, Andrew. I will agree with that 100%. Although I am surprised that offensive coordinator change, at least through the first 2 games of it, seems to have paid dividends for them. Caleb Williams looked good against Green Bay last week, and he looked good yesterday. So maybe they found something with this guy that can, help make Caleb Williams into more of a serviceable quarterback. I don't know, but it could be that after another, 2 to 3 weeks, teams get enough tape on what they're going to do, and then they adjust, and it goes right back to the same stuff we saw before. Time will tell, I guess. But Vikings had the 11-point lead. What happened? Yeah, that was the thing. They fell apart. That was just it. They special teams goofed badly on 2 consecutive plays, that allowing that long kickoff return and then that onside kick, and that's all it took. And then, the defense got behind the 8 ball right off the get-go on both of those drives. And, and time again, like I said, but if the Vikings defense cannot get pressure, the back end gets exposed. Cornerback is still a major concern on this team. Byron Murphy has played very well this year, but it's the outside guys. Gilmore has flashes when he looks great, and then he has flashes where he looks like a 35-year-old cornerback that probably shouldn't be a starter anymore. Shaq Griffin, for the most part, he's played well all year, but he had, he'll get burned once in a while too. It's one of those things. Sure, all those letters are causing serious writer's cramps. I'm pretty sure at this point in time, Doc, they just have a form letter that says, that they'll just put, "Dear insert team here, we are sorry we fucked up the call this week. Our bad. It won't happen again. Sorry for the inconvenience. Love the NFL officiating crew," or something. I don't know. But, at this point in time, it's just getting, You have the biggest money-making sports machine in the United States, and arguably more than United States. And you have games that are being adversely affected by the incompetence of your officiating crews. We've talked about this before too. Most of these officials have a regular job during the week, and they just come in and be an official on the weekends. At this point in time, and I don't care that you have to go back and renegotiate with the officiating union. The officials in the NFL need to be full-time employees of the league whose only job is to know the rule book, know the plays, know how everything is called, and put all of their time and effort towards that. During the week, wherever the crew is going, send them out to various teams to watch through practices and work with the teams on some of this stuff. Start watching film on both teams so teams' tendencies. Like, for example, the right tackle of the Kansas City Chiefs, who false starts on every pass play that they have, and it never gets called. Look for some of these tendencies, look for some of this stuff, but it's never going to happen. I don't know. They got to do something, but Roger Goodell is going to keep walking around with his head up his backside on this until they're forced to do something, which if they haven't been forced now, I don't know what's going to force them to that. But anyway, I mean, the Vikings, for the first time now I saw somebody saying first time in franchise history, but I find that hard to believe because we had the 15-1 season. But the first time in at least since 98 that the Vikings have won 3 consecutive road games on that 3-game streak. Of course, Jacksonville, Tennessee, and now Chicago, as they head home this weekend to take on the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. Also, with the victory, Kevin O'Connell becomes only the second head coach in team history to win their first 3 games in Soldier Field, the late Dennis Green being the other one. So a lot of first. Jordan Addison, had a career game yesterday, 162 yards and a touchdown. Should have probably scored on that 69-yarder, but got caught from behind once he got inside the 10 there. I think he ended up down the 7-yard line, something like that. But they got the job done. They had that stumble. They went toe-to-toe with Detroit for 12 rounds. Then they had that stumble 4 days later against the Rams. But since then, they've come, they had the little mini bye. They've come back off that. They've won 3 straight. They haven't been pretty wins, but they've been wins nonetheless. The team is sitting at 9-2. There was nobody in the national media prior to the season that pegged the Vikings at 9 wins total, let alone 9 wins through the first 12 weeks of the season. This team right now, they have, I believe it's a 98% chance of making the playoffs. Even if you go 500 over the last 6 games, you're still end up at 12-5. And, worst case, if you 1-5 out of the last 6 games, the team is still better than what everybody predicted that they would be, at least of the quote unquote wise national media football professional type people. There's a lot of us, that had predicted a much better season than that. I mean, I said from the get-go that this was at least a wild card team with Sam Darnold. Now, can they get beyond the wild card round? That still remains to be seen. But there's a very likely possibility that you're going to have a team that's, 13-4 having to go on the road in the wild card round to face a team that's 9-8, or, as it sits right now, the Vikings would be the 5 seed, but they would travel either to Arizona or Atlanta in that wild card round, having a much better record than either one of them. But it's the way the playoff system is. Winning your division counts for something. I know I'm starting to hear that argument again about should the NFL change it and reseed the teams based on record and not, where they finish, the division win having priority over that. I can hear arguments either way on that, but I mean, winning your division is an accomplishment, and you should be rewarded in some way, shape, or form for it. So I'm okay with it the way it is too. But anyway, what else do we have on here? We talked about the sacks. Oh, a couple other things here today. Happy birthday to tight end Nick Muse, and who just was activated off of IR for the game yesterday. And kind of a shitty move. I mean, I get what it is, but the Vikings waived Nick Muse this afternoon. He'll come back to the practice squad provided he clears waivers. But cutting the kid on his birthday is kind of a shitty move. They could have waited and done it yesterday, or tomorrow, but it is what it is. It's not cutting somebody on Christmas Eve like Childress did, but still on your birthday is kind of a buzzkill. But other than that, of course, Caleb Evans, who was waived prior to or on Saturday to make room for the aforementioned Nick Muse, what did not clear waivers. He was picked up by the Carolina Panthers today. So 5 draft picks out of that 2022 class are now gone. And depending upon if Nick Muse gets picked up by somebody else, could be 6. Evans had fallen down the depth chart. He was at the point where the only thing he was doing was playing special teams and not playing them well. So, I'm fine with the fact that he's moved on elsewhere. Wish him the best of luck. I mean, he'll get playing time in Carolina, I'm sure. But, once again, it just kind of points back to how poor that 2022 draft class was. And of course, everybody likes to point to that as a knock on Kwesi, but you can't discount that. But I mean, when you look at what the man has done with free agency, I mean, look at the 4 biggest free agents we brought in this year. Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, counted for 3 sacks yesterday. Blake Cashman, again, all over the field, played a very good game. Aaron Jones went over 100 yards yesterday. Aaron, we've been talking about some of this stuff, and it doesn't really seem like it, but Aaron Jones has gone over 1,000 yards now for the season. So I mean, that's something right there. Used to be getting 1,000 yards in an entire season was a massive accomplishment, but now, we're in week 12, and he's hit the 1,000-yard mark. So that's a good sign. I mean, we didn't have anything close to that last year. That was Rick's scouting. Yeah, that was Rick Spielman's scouting department in 2022. They did not have, of course, time to get their own people in, their own staff, their own assessment of players. So it was kind of done on the fly. So, I mean, it was a shitty draft, but you look back at a lot of the ones that Rick Spielman did especially over like the last 5-6 years that he was here, and there was a lot of shitty drafts in there too. realistic. I mean, you start looking at some of those drafts, he had, 10, 12 draft picks, and none of them panned out, or you had one guy that ended up being a mid-range player. I mean, people have short memories on some of that stuff. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. But like I said, the free agency stuff that he's done has been phenomenal. Shaq Griffin, again, was a very good pickup. He's had a good season. Trading for TJ Hockenson last year, still very impressive move. Signing Josh Oliver. Josh Oliver has had a great season this year. Sounds like he will be back and ready to go for next week. So that's a good sign, which is why a lot of the reason why that they let Nick Muse go to move him to the practice squad, because Oliver will be active again. Asamoah was good. Yeah, I thought he'd be good because he's demoted to special teams. Now he did recover that block kick yesterday. Is making plays on special teams. You see him running around quite a bit, but he has not been able to crack the defensive lineup much. I mean, part of that is the emergence of Ivan Pace, and then another free agent signing this year, Camus Grugier-Hill, has played very well when he's been called upon. So now I want to talk about, though, that with the release of Nick Muse today, that opens up a roster spot on the team, which I know the first thing I saw today is the Vikings are going to go get Daniel Jones and bring him in as a backup quarterback. I don't understand what the reasoning behind that is. I mean, you got Sam Darnold is 9-2. And then you've got stone cold Nick Mullins, who came in yesterday off the bench again, cold, came in on 3rd and 13, throws a first down to Aaron Jones. Then next play, they get another first down. Darnold gets his ankle straightened back out, comes trotting back in. Nick Mullins delivers a stone cold stunner to a Bears defender, trots off the field, and power chugs a couple of Coors Lights on the sidelines. I mean, I'm fine with Nick Mullins as a bet. Now, if God forbid something would happen and Nick Mullins is your starter, yeah, then you need to go look at somebody else as a backup. Save the money. Daniel Jones cleared waivers, so the Giants are on the hook for all of his contracts, so you could sign him for the vet minimum, bring him in it. He says he wants to sign with a contender, and he did mention the Vikings as a team, apparently. But I think more likely that roster spot that opened up will probably go to Gabe Murphy, because he has to come off of IR. His 21-day window is closing this week sometime. I believe he's either got to come off or he goes on IR for the rest of the season. So my guess is that's what that roster spot is for Gabe Murphy. He'll probably be activated tomorrow, Wednesday, I would say at the earliest. Preseason, they really like this kid, which is why they kept him on IR instead of, waiving him with an injury designation in the preseason. And they're not going to go through all of that to just try to release him right now and, try to get him onto the practice squad, because I think somebody probably would pick him up, even though they haven't seen anything out of him yet. But so my guess, that's what that open roster spot is. I know I saw Judd Zulgad talking about it on Twitter today, about the fact that he thinks that they are bringing in Daniel Jones. You're going to make Daniel Jones your third string quarterback and carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster because you're not going to cut Nick Mullins. It doesn't make sense right now. Now, next year, if Darnold gets a big contract someplace else and moves on, and you want somebody else as a backup quarterback to JJ McCarthy, I could be talked into Daniel Jones sitting there as a backup. But I don't think it makes a ton of sense right now to bring him in this year. Nick Mullins can't finish a season. He can start 2 or 3 in a pinch. Yeah, and that's, hopefully all we need Mullins to do is do like he did yesterday. If Sam gets shaken up and he has to come out for a couple of plays, he goes in and, he's 2 for 2 on throws this year, both of them for first downs. Keeps the drive going, and then Darnold comes back in and Mullins goes and takes the bench and grabs his clipboard back. I mean, that's what we need him for. We saw last year. Yeah, the guy can throw for a shit ton of yards, but he's going to throw a shit ton of interceptions too, which does not make things any better. So, but still with that, I'd rather have him right now than Daniel Jones coming in here. He's a reclamation project. You're not going to throw him in there, bring him in and expect him to go out and fully execute Kevin O'Connell's offense. Now, again, ideally, we don't see the backup quarterback unless it's just mop-up duty or something like that for the rest of the year anyway. So I don't know. I don't think. G-Mac, good evening. Darnold's badass, been hitting head, come out 3 times this year, boom, right back in. The guy is tough. You got to give him credit. He's tough, and he's showing that he's got some of that grit that you need to have as a quarterback. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, that drive in overtime yesterday, Darnold was absolute freaking money on that drive. He stood in a pocket, took a couple of pretty good hits, but was delivering the ball. He was decisive on where he was throwing. He did a better job of not holding the ball too long yesterday, spreading it around. He wasn't force feeding it to Justin Jefferson. I think Kevin O'Connell probably had a sit down with him, especially after that Jacksonville game. I think they sat down, him, Wes Phillips, Josh McCown sat down and basically had to have a come to Jesus meeting with him about, you don't have to force the ball into Justin Jefferson because we have other weapons. And whatever they did over the last 2 games, it's made a difference. Darnold has started to look more like he was back in September. We're 9-2 of Darnold's down, season over. Yeah, I mean, if your starting quarterback goes down a lot of the times, yeah, your season's pretty much screwed. I mean, we saw what happened even yesterday with San Francisco going into Green Bay. They got curb stomped because Brock Purdy didn't play and Nick Bosa didn't play. And, injury, we saw what happened last year with, when Kirk Cousins went down. Darnold's playing for a payday. He is, absolutely. And if he continues to play like he is, he absolutely deserves a payday next year. Now, where would that be? I don't know. There's always teams that are looking for a quarterback. Would Darnold play as well in other systems as he's playing with Kevin O'Connell? Remains to be seen. With the Jets, he wasn't very good. With the Panthers, he wasn't very good. If you could get somebody, if he goes in and is if Matt Stafford hangs up the cleats, he goes and plays for McVay, I think he would succeed there. Back to San Francisco, but they've got Brock Purdy, he would succeed there. You need somebody like that. There's places he can go and he can be a good quarterback. I mean, he's a good quarterback here. He's showing why he was a 3rd overall pick, when he came out. Yeah, Cousins was tough till he wasn't. Yeah. National media has to mention this to Roger. They don't. Yeah, I didn't even want to bring that up, just for the simple fact that no, it's not happening. That's the last thing this team needs to do is even entertain that. Sam, the wins are huge even if you didn't play well. Wins breed confidence. I couldn't agree with that more, Doc. And you see that, and you see what the team having confidence in you does for a guy like Darnold, who, self-admittedly was seeing ghosts in New York. And, he was beat down. He was, unsure of himself, confident shot, all that stuff that you can say. He learned a lot, and he has said this, being Brock Purdy's backup in San Francisco last year under Shanahan. He said he learned a lot about how to play football from Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy on how he prepared and how he did all this stuff. He said that helped him out a ton. And then get him in here, with a coach like Kevin O'Connell, who believes in him, who, isn't going to yank him out the first time he has a bad game. I mean, I know there was a lot of Vikings fans during that Jacksonville game that were saying that he needed to be sat down for the second half. I was one of them. We did a show 2 weeks ago asking if the Vikings had a Sam Darnold problem. To their credit, Sam Darnold has turned it back around. Come to think of it, we talked about last week that the Vikings running game had a problem. Now this week, Aaron Jones went out and had a 100-yard game. So what problem do we need to talk about today that the Vikings can correct for Atlanta or Arizona next week? That would be a good thing to, if any of you guys have anything in the chat there, throw that out there. Then we will, we'll hammer that point to try to speak it into existence. Sam could do a lot better if we had more passing plays. It didn't take so long to develop. That's part of it. They're sitting there trying to hit those deep shots to Justin Jefferson, and you sit there and hold the ball too long. They did that on one play yesterday, I remember. And that's why I made a point of, in my keys to the game on Saturday when Brunswick and I were talking about this thing, is take the simple stuff, and that's where the TJ Hockenson plays came in yesterday. The short throws to Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson being, all the emphasis and the attention being pushed over to him, opens up Jordan Addison on the other side. And that's the biggest thing. As long as Sam Darnold can remember that he has more weapons than just Justin Jefferson, we end up with a situation like we did yesterday. If they take Jefferson out of the game, the other guys are going to feast. Eventually, you're going to force him to start rolling coverage back over to Addison or to Hockenson, and then that's going to open Jefferson back up. So it's a pick your poison kind of thing. Anthony, he didn't have Anthony Carter versus San Francisco. Anthony Carter had 229 yards receiving against San Francisco that game. Addison had 162 yesterday, which is very good game. I'm not discounting what Addison did yesterday at all, but that game that Anthony Carter had versus San Francisco was otherworldly. For those of us who are old enough to remember it and watched it. O-line. No, the O-line is a problem, Doc. I mean, they show signs once in a while of being competent. Now, Cam Robinson, of course, went down yesterday. I have not heard, as somebody asked earlier, and I was going to get back to it, and I kind of got off track, but have not heard anything on Cam Robinson yet. Have not heard anything on Ivan Pace either. We'll find out more about that on probably Wednesday when the first injury report comes out. I would expect both of them probably going to be limited, at least to start, but hopefully we can have them back by Sunday. Dalton Reisner still, I don't know that he is an upgrade much, or at least these first couple of games hasn't been much of an upgrade over what Ed Ingram was doing. I think Reisner gave up 5 pressures yesterday. I thought I saw in the stat line. So that's not good enough. We still have to, whether it be with the decent amount of cap space that we have going into 2025, or finagling something in the draft, we have to look for a center, and we have to look for at least one guard, right guard for sure. And maybe that helps, that can only help, especially when you go to a young quarterback next year with JJ McCarthy. Yeah, the 2-minute defense, we hit on that earlier. It wasn't great. When they go into that prevent defense and don't bring pressure, that's when it seems like they start getting burned. And it happened to them yesterday. I mean, on that touchdown drive at the end there, got to give credit to Caleb Williams. And I know if Andy is still watching, he's probably going to give me shit about that. But hey, credit where credit is due. Caleb Williams played well yesterday for the most part. And I mean, he did better than I expected against this defense. And, I think some of that has to be Thomas Brown, the new offensive coordinator, coming in and figuring things out a little bit here. Now, can they continue that, or, will it revert back once teams get a little bit more tape on them? It remains to be seen. But, last 2 games for Caleb Williams, he's played like a number 1 overall pick. We'll put it that way. Defense not collapsing in the final minutes. Yeah, that was a thing yesterday, and it wasn't even so much. I think the defense would have been fine if the special teams had not put them in the 2 holes that they put them in, with that 50-whatever yard kick return and then the botched onside kick recovery attempt. Now, that being said, it could have been worse. Before yesterday, there had not been a single onside kick recovered in the NFL this year under the new rules. Yesterday, there was 2. One was our game. And in the Dallas Cowboys Washington Commanders game, Dallas actually not only recovered it, ran it back for a touchdown. So, at least that didn't happen to us. So we can feel good about that, I guess. But got Arizona next. Can't take them lightly. No, that's true. I mean, Arizona right now, they did lose to Seattle yesterday. So Arizona and Seattle are tied for the lead in the NFC West. I think they're both 6-5, I believe it is. Kyler Murray has played well this year. Marvin Harrison Jr. has shown flashes, has not necessarily broke out like many expected that he would yet anyway. But it takes time with some of these wide receivers after a while, so I'm not worried about that. But James Conner is going to be a problem. We have to continue to, if the run defense holds up like it has been, Connor's been great this year for Arizona. You got to keep an eye on him. Kyler Murray likes to run around too. He can move, and we saw Caleb Williams make it difficult yesterday for the Vikings defense using his mobility. Kyler Murray can do the same thing. Murray's not as electric as Williams is running, so there's that. But it's not going to be a cakewalk against Arizona next week. It's back home again now. We haven't been home in a month. So hopefully the crowd at US Bank is loud and hyped up, and we go in there and we can take care of business. But, we'll see what happens come Sunday. Yesterday was Minnesota's 23rd one-score game since 2022. Yeah, that's a lot. We talk about this all the time, that why can't we just have nice, easy, 2-score wins on a regular basis? This team likes to make it hard on themselves and hard on the fan base for some reason or another. But we should be used to it by now, because it's not just new to the Kevin O'Connell regime. It's been this way for as long as I've been a fan, and that's 40, almost 50 years now. So it's we should be used to it. It's frustrating at times, but a win is a win. We're going to take it no matter what. I'll take an ugly nail-biting victory over a well-fought loss any day of the week. So key points are this team is 9-2. Sam Darnold is back to playing well. The Jordan Addison is getting involved in the thing now. TJ Hockenson's back and getting involved in the offense. Aaron Jones looks like his ribs or whatever the injury was that he had are probably healed up now. He looked good yesterday. Grenard and Van Ginkel and Cashman on the defense are still playing extremely well. So, I mean, this team has the tools to make a run. Most people didn't expect it to happen this year. GMAC, I am 49 years old. I will be 50 in March. But, everybody expected this to be a transition year. That this team is good enough to make a run at the Super Bowl this year. They are. And will that happen? The next 2 months are going to tell us. But, we just enjoy the ride while it goes and see what happens from here on out. But anyway, that's about all I got for tonight. We've been going on here for a little over 50 minutes, but the Harbaugh Bowl part 3 or part 4 or whatever going on tonight on Monday Night Football. So I'll let you guys get to what do you got. Eric's got a question here. We'll hit that one first. Talking about Addison earlier, what a great game he had. The girl on the morning football show. She gave Addison. Oh, that's what's her name? Jamie Erdahl. She is a Minnesota native, Minnesota Vikings fan. She blew the Galler horn again for the Colts game. Yeah, he absolutely deserved a game ball. Got a game ball, from KOC in the post game yesterday. He gets one of my game balls. I mean, he gets one. Grenard gets one. I'm giving Aaron Jones one. Sam Darnold deserves one. TJ Hockenson. There was a lot of guys that stepped up and played very well yesterday. We just got to eliminate those, handful of poor plays and mistakes that we have during the game and start playing complete games. This team can play with anybody in the league. I'm fully confident of that. So, we'll just see how things come. We got a tougher game now. The quote unquote easy part of the schedule is over. The last 6 are going to be a little bit tougher. We got Arizona, we got Atlanta, we have the Bears again, we have Seattle, then Green Bay and Detroit to finish out the year. So, hey, it's crunch time. This is where good teams go out and prove that they're good teams. So let's go do that and see what happens. Programming note, we're going to be doing another Friday or Saturday night show this week, 9:30 p.m. We're going to shoot for like we did last weekend. Brunswick's work schedule's been a little screwed up here for the last month or so we kind of make it as we can. But I kind of like the last word on a Saturday show for a Sunday game. So we're going to do that again this week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. If you haven't done so, hit that like button, hit on your way out, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook. I'm on Twitter a considerable amount as well. So if you see me on there, say hi. Josh, the cream rises to the top. Absolutely it does. And it's time for the cream to start rising. So, all it's going to take is a little bit of a stumble from Detroit, which, the NFL is a weird league, a weird game. And, Detroit's going gangbusters now. By January, they could be struggling and drop 3 straight. It's hard. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. So, or Thursday this week as Detroit gets Chicago. But with that, shout out again to all you guys in the chat. Thank you for joining. Thank you for bringing the comments and the questions and discussion. Always a great time hanging out with you guys on a Monday, talking about a Vikings victory as we move on to 9-2 and head home now for 3 straight games. So shout out again to you guys. Shout out to the Filipino fan club. Shout out to my lovely wife, Noi, upstairs watching the show. And with that, you guys have a great week. Go watch some football tonight and have a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your family, your friends. Watch a lot of football, eat a lot of food. Have some beers, play some cards, do whatever your family does on Thanksgiving. 3 games of football on Thanksgiving, 1 game on Black Friday, and then, of course, we roll into the slate on the weekend as well. So with that, you guys have a great evening, and we shall see you on Saturday.